Hi, this is Megan and welcome to Greenwood Grown. I'm a gardener in the Willamette Valley of Oregon, growing in zone 8B. So in my last video, I had talked about how I wanted to make a video about how I deal with being overwhelmed in the spring and kind of the discouragement that I feel when I first come out in the spring to start preparing my garden for growing. And that was 2 weeks ago and I didn't make that video. And I think because I just was feeling that overwhelm that adding the camera to it was an additional level of feeling overwhelmed that I couldn't handle with. So I just wanted to talk about it. At the beginning of this, I played some footage that I did take right around that time of some of the perennials that are coming up, the asparagus, the dahlias, the coreopsis, and I think there was some of the first bed that I always plant, which is onions. The garlic is up, the greens are in. And at the end of this video, I'll take some footage that is now 2 weeks later, and so you can see the difference. Hopefully the rain is not too loud in my greenhouse. Obviously I'm in my greenhouse and it's raining. So it's raining pretty hard, so hopefully the noise is not too overwhelming on the video. So let's take a look at what's going on in my greenhouse right now and talk about our kind of weird spring and what's going on. And hopefully it'll stop raining and I can get some pictures of or some footage of the garden in the state that it's in right now well, I'll show you. We'll get that when I get there. So here I am standing. I'm standing right against the doorway of my greenhouse. And as you can see, there are a lot of plants in here. So we've got zinnias and marigolds right here. All the tomatoes are along here. They're under my only grow light. I just have one grow light. It is up high because that's how it is in the greenhouse. It just gives it a little bit of boost when it runs overnight. I don't actually even know how much difference it makes in the greenhouse, but it makes me feel better. It came with the greenhouse, so I run it. Some other things, my peppers, come check out my peppers. Somebody asked me today, peppers take so long to grow. They were planted at roughly the same time as my tomatoes. Those are the tomatoes. You can see how big they are. And these are the peppers. Like these are, not these. These are eggplant. Turn off that fan. So some of the smallest ones are just still newly germinated. In fact, there's one that just germinated, and right there that's just germinated. And the biggest ones are just getting their second set of true leaves. These are all also peppers that were up potted and the same. Come on, there we go. They're just starting to get their first true leaves. Over here we have lots of basil. We're gonna grow lots of basil this year. And lots more zinnias. This is straw flower down here. There's just a lot of really interesting things. I'm excited about this. I've never grown this before. It's black-eyed Susan vine, which is not a black-eyed Susan at all. I don't know if I showed this before, but the loofah is up. I'm trying a new way of growing loofah in giant pots. So these will be moved out into my garden, but they will stay in here until it is good and hot outside. Hopefully we'll get some good loofah to dry. Sounds like the rain is letting up, so let's head outside. I do have my brassicas and the alyssum out hardening off because they can handle these weird cold temperatures. So it is still lightly raining, but the light is so pretty right now. This is one of the things that I really love about Oregon is the sun is coming out a little bit, but we call this liquid sunshine here when the sun is out, but it's just raining a little bit and it just makes everything look magical and beautiful. But gratefully, I'm filming on an iPhone, so it can get a little wet. Just a little wet doesn't hurt it. And so I don't have to protect this camera like I would have to a bigger camera. But let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on in the garden. So there's a project going on here at the entrance to the garden, and I'll save exactly what that is for when it gets closer to done. We'll probably have a video on it, but making a mess a little bit right here. If you'll remember, this was my compost pile in the fall, and I planted potatoes here. Again, I had potatoes here last year. I amended the soil. I let the compost bin come down, and they're coming up. Also, because I composted things here, those I think are zinnias. So I'm gonna go ahead and transplant them somewhere a little bit more convenient because the potatoes will overtake them pretty quickly. There's some other interesting things growing in here that I'm gonna let see. There may be some sunflowers. Looks like maybe some greens of some sort, maybe a radish. I don't know. Kind of fun to grow in an old compost pile. You don't know what you're gonna get. So the structure of the garden is in. John Henry and one of his friends are working for me this year to help get the structures in, so they help this. I'm pretty proud of this. It's kind of hard to tell, but I've taken a cattle panel and I've serpentined it through this bed. So this is a 16-foot long cattle panel in a 10-foot bed, and I've curved it. Can you see that? I've curved it. This does not need to be here, so that it serpentines through here to create a trellis. And it just needed two short, it actually didn't need anything to keep it in place, but it was bowing out a little bit. So we put two short T-posts in to hold it in place there, but it is nice and sturdy. John Henry climbed on it, and I'm pretty excited about coming up with that as a new trellising system. Tomatoes are going to go in our second bed here this year. I am going to grow on bamboo again. I put them up in and this time I started out with tripods. I have put them up as tripods. Last year that's how they ended up, even though I had just stuck them in the ground. The tomatoes overwhelmed them, and I needed to tie them together like that in order to create enough structure. But I actually am going to take these down and do a 4-pole system so that I have an even number of poles on each side. So this is what's going to happen, but I'm going to take it down and redo it. And we have 2 cattle panel arches this year. Pretty excited about this. Managed to protect the sprouting broccoli, which we have been enjoying. So nice to come out and get a garden snack right from the garden. Onions are doing good. I have another teenager working for me. She got the radishes thinned. Look how good those French breakfast radishes are looking. We're going to be eating radishes in no time. These are the multi-sown beets, and lots of greens coming up. We also have lots of peas coming up, and I'm hopeful that my dog won't get them this year. So the in-ground beds are still covered with cardboard, and they've still got some weeds in them. We do have the motherwort. I think I'm going to move the motherwort, but we'll see. And this compost bin is still here, or compost pile is still here. And you can see it's composted down to basically nothing. So they're not ready, but the raised beds are all prepped. So the thing I wanted to talk about that I just couldn't, I guess I couldn't do it, or I couldn't talk about it until I did it, was the thing that makes me so overwhelmed is that there is just so much to be done. It's a big space, and I walk through the garden and look at all the containers and all of the beds and the projects that I know are on the agenda for this season, and it just is so overwhelming. And I have to fight that feeling of it's just too much. I just can't do it. And if I let that feeling overtake me, then I do nothing. So what I have found is that I just take one little thing at a time. And some days that's clearing out a single container, making sure that it's cleaned. Some days that's potting up in the greenhouse. Some days that's filling a bed with compost. And eventually, over the course of not too much time, and with some help, I did ask for help this year. I hired some teenagers, and I'm so grateful that I did. And grateful that I have the ability to do that and that they were willing. So that as I do one little thing at a time, just one little bit, that I feel more motivated to do the next thing. I can look at that one little bit of order and of readiness for the garden, and it will motivate me to do the next thing. The other thing is that good boy, is that as I watch the perennial plants come out of dormancy, that brings me so much joy that that plant survived the winter and it's ready to wake up, and watching those plants come out of dormancy and get bigger and grow with no work on my part, that's really motivating to me as well. What do you think, Ike? Ike's not a lot of help in the garden, but he is a good companion. So if you are feeling overwhelmed or frustrated with your gardening, just choose some small little piece and do that today. Just do that one little thing. Maybe you just choose a single bed to weed, or get the cardboard off of a single bed. Those are things that sometimes that's all I can handle that day. And slowly, the cumulative effects and the plants waking up and stretching and sending their shoots up motivates me to come out here more and more. And of course, the sunshine, it's totally stopped raining, and now it's a lovely evening. And eventually, I remember that this is my favorite time of year. All right, I'm gonna shoot some footage of some of the things that are coming up that are a little bit bigger now, of the plants that I took the footage of a couple weeks ago. Thanks for joining me. I hope that this is interesting and helpful to you, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.